finished medical school in Athens, in Greece. And that was the time when the dictatorship was falling. I entered university the last year of the dictatorship. And we were very politically involved. It was a time of change on everything, social issues. So it was a great period for us to get involved with society, to mature. It was not great for our studies, though. When I finished the medical school, I was a bit lost on what I wanted to do in life. So there was no option for doing public health at that time in Greece. So I just did my clinical specialty in radiotherapy, oncology, and I basically was not happy. So at some point in time, I took a leave and I went to London, and I just sat in the London School of Hygiene and listened. I had a good friend there, so I just listened, and I listened to Jeffrey Rose and many other people around. And I thought that's what I wanted to do in life, basically public health. So I went back, got a fellowship, and went to study epidemiology. I started working more on social issues, on social inequalities. At that time, I was coming from this sort of very political environment. I'm still very interested on what happens in this society, but I'm not politically active. I was very, very active at that time. So it was, and I went there and I heard for the first time that there are social factors determining health, and things that are just, everybody knows that, in the Titanic, there were more people who were drowned from the third class than the first class. That was the first time I heard of it. I had a very classical medical training. I really went into this story of social inequalities. There was no question, I would like to work on that. So that's how I chose at that time. And then you choose differently. You also choose on the basis of funding. One of the reasons why people are not working so much on occupation is because there's not much money for occupational research. But not only that, you just try to identify areas that are, that you can make a difference, that are interesting to you, and that you can make a difference in the end. My first work was at the International Agency for Research on Cancer, and it was on occupational epidemiology. And then I switched I went back to sort of wider issues, which is environment. And then I went to Lyon in France at the International Agency for Research on Cancer. And there I worked on occupational cancer, and that was good because that also brought me into the wider environmental agenda. We did big studies on things like dioxins. We studied in the occupational environment, but it's obviously important for everybody, and a number of other studies. And it gave me a wider picture of the world because it's WHO, and you come to know people, and you come to start getting contact with low-income countries. And some of the first studies I did at IARC, for example, were very important. I liked them. Some others I thought, oh, well, we're doing all this big international study for something that is not so important. I don't like it to spend my time on this. So that also defined me. So I knew from fairly early that I don't want to spend my time on things that are not important. And you cannot judge many times, what will come out as important. You cannot judge, but you try to, and you select your topics. But also it is what interests you, among others, what stimulates you intellectually. We are researchers, and it has to motivate you, to make you, work long hours, not complaining because you like it, not because somebody obliges you. You come to understand fairly quickly that you have to communicate in many levels and different people. So you do it. And also on your capacity to build a group and be very generous with your collaborators. I think this is extremely important. There are different models, to say the truth. I have seen very authoritarian researchers who are extremely, extremely successful. But, I think it's better to be less authoritarian, give degrees of freedom to everybody. Obviously, I have more experience than my younger colleagues, so I may direct them towards something, but, you have to pay well, take care of the people with whom you work, and leave them space for them to develop. That's how you build groups. And if you have good ideas, you get funding. And sometimes you have good ideas and you don't get funding, which is despairing. For some of my good ideas, I haven't got funding. I'd like to have some more fundings on issues of the circadian disruption, for example, that I'm doing work. I went to Barcelona and I was still working mostly on occupation and on respiratory diseases, because the group was working a lot on respiratory diseases. Also because of the dioxin work, I just thought that much of the work we're doing would have more impact if we did this work in relation to the whole population, not only specific occupational exposures. That's also important. And a number of my friends were in ISEE, and after all, it's the only good conference in environmental health. It was the only good society, frankly speaking, interesting society in environmental health. So that's how I started being involved in ISEE, just going to the conference initially, obviously. I started getting involved more because also I saw the need to organize ourselves as scientists a bit better in Europe initially. So I was very much involved together with Barbara Hoffman and others in establishing the European section of ISEE. And that was extremely important because we had a say at the central level, in Brussels, in the European Union, and we could also contact all our colleagues and decide on, what should we be doing in Europe. So that's how I started getting involved. So then I got elected as a councillor, and then we organized the Barcelona conference with Mark Nieuwenhuizen. And then I was asked to present myself for president, which I did. The difference, I think, was that for me as a president, that I already had some, directive role at my institute. So I knew from the inside the need to have sort of clear rules, plans, and priorities at the institutional level. And we had already set up ISEE Europe. And it was a very good coincidence that my predecessor, Francine Leyden, had actually managed to fix the budget. When I started, and it's Francine's work, it's not my work. So when I started, I was, I think, the first president who had really small budget, but still a budget that I could handle, not only paying the basics, but also say, hey, we have money to do a course, we have money to develop this committee. So that's how we started, and we became more of a modern society. I really want to stress that the fact that we had some more money was crucial, because you really cannot do anything if you just have the bare thing to have just a small organization that runs the society. That's it, nothing more. We're not like the clinical associations that have really a lot of money because they also have money from pharma. But, we have enough to keep us moving, give fellowships and courses. And then it just took over normally, because it's normal. We have fantastic people at ISEE. They are motivated and they know that they can work and this can have an effect. And people now assume that ISEE is as always like that, but it was not always like that. Before it was just the conference, the annual conference, that was the activity. And, we had what we are missing now with COVID, also at the personal level, the fact that you move to a different environment and you just don't go as a tourist, you're there and you stay for days and you're the whole day with people, their own dreams and priorities, and you have the capacity to talk really with them and discuss and then continue after the course, obviously, which is also important. So it was a fantastic experience. In the pre-COVID area, I was in a situation where I was traveling once a week, basically, mostly in Europe, to say the truth, but still I was traveling once a week, and I'm really happy that I'm not doing it. And basically, we can do most of the work that we're doing without doing it. And this, we have learned it now, and there's no way back. And also, even for my own group, the fact that we have this possibility now to work all together online has really brought the group together. Before, we had different studies. So, I would be talking with the guys doing this in one meeting, and the guys doing that in another meeting. And now we have these weekly meetings of the whole group, and people really enjoy them to see what the other people are doing. And this, we did it very, very occasionally, but not systematic. So that this is a very positive side of getting people together in a different way and facilitating getting people together. But The downside is that many things you really have to do in person. There's no way to do it. I mean, you can do it in other ways, but it's not efficient in the end. So we will find a new equilibrium, and we will have in-person meetings because they are extremely important. You know what Mark and Francine were saying. You know what lots of people will say. Lots of the studies and new ideas come from discussions in the corridor, and this goes for ISEE and this goes for the Institute. The discussions I have in the corridor with many of my colleagues is the ones that create new ideas, and it's nice to see people. How can I say? It's to see your friends and your colleagues with whom you have worked, for years. Something that has come out many times, how much the industry influences decisions on policies. In one of our conferences that we did together with another society, it was a joint conference, we had in the hall we're drinking coffee, cars being advertised, and big oil supporting our conference. And, at that time we said we cannot do that. It was not our society promoting that, it was the other society, but somehow the conference was joint. So we said we just cannot accept that we have big oil supporting us. And there were people saying, but we give this money to support students from low-income countries. Okay, I mean, we have to support them, but not with big oil money. This started a discussion that was ripe for the society. For us, it was pretty clear for most of us there. And so we wrote in the official pages of ISEE that we have in one of the journals, an editorial, and there were a lot of reactions, things said by quite serious people who I think have it very, very wrong. And they have it very wrong, particularly in a situation where we have this destruction of the globe with climate change, and we have these big oil companies that are playing tricks. They are giving some peanuts, and at the same time they are drilling everywhere. So this doesn't work like that. We cannot do it. We have to put limits to that. And one of the limits is that we should talk with them, definitely. I'm absolutely, we should talk with them, but we cannot get money from them, and we have to be very clear. As simple as that. There's nothing more than that. So it was very clear. We just put it on paper, basically. And there's a lot of support in the society, so nearly everybody agrees. But we got some nasty letters, though. We should work with industry. We have to work with them. They are an important part of the society, and industry promotes also technological innovation, and they give work and everything. That's fine, but you have to put limits. And one of these limits is that you don't want them to fund you because it's small money, to say the truth. It wouldn't affect ISEE at all. We wouldn't change our policies. But you really don't want to have any obligation to people who have these destructive policies. We have to stop it. And this is a message which, lots of universities are taking. They're just removing all the stocks they have from oil companies. So they may have losses, economical losses. I mean, maybe not, because now the money is in the alternative energy. It has been such a great experience to be in ISEE. They're so nice people there, so interesting people, and the fact that you work with people around the globe is so important nowadays. So I'm so happy that I have been involved actively in the society, and still I'm involved. And I think that's it. That's it. It is in the area of environmental health is the place where you should be.